To debrief that press conference, I'm joined now in the studio by International Affairs Editor Shirli Sitbon. Good to have you with us, Shirley.
Good to be here.
So Pete Hegseth, he started out, didn't he, talking about the US's blockade of Iranian ports, saying it's growing and gone global. What was he trying to get at there?
Well, he's putting pressure, saying that the U.S. has all the time in the world, saying he's quoting Donald Trump, when Iran does not, according to him. He says that the Iranians are under pressure and that they need to accept a deal, a good deal, he said, and that's what the U.S. is offering. It's a chance, it's an opportunity, they should seize it. So what's the situation like now in Hormuz? Well, he says that the U.S. will not let any ship that has come or that is going towards the ports of Iran pass through Hormuz. He's saying that the Iranian guards, they're the ones who are acting as terrorists, as criminals. They're the one blocking any vessel, firing at vessels randomly, placing mines in Hormuz, when the U.S. was very peacefully asking ships and crews to move back to the ports of Iran, go back to their port of departure, or just stop on their way, just to go back on both sides, not being aggressive, but being very determined. That's what Pete Hegseth has said, and he's also not just placing the pressure on Iran, but also on others. He said that all the fuel coming from the Gulf states and from Iran isn't used by the U.S. The U.S. is all the time, but somebody else, for example, the allies from Europe, well, they need that fuel. That's what he said anyway, and he says that many others are really, that the situation there is much more fateful and determining for them, that they should act and not just talk.
Yeah, he said that the time for free riding is over. And he also explicitly referenced recent meetings, including the current meeting of EU leaders in Cyprus. He was rather dismissive, to say the least, of these meetings.
Yes, even talking them, saying they're silly conference, talking about doing something once everything's done. This is a reference to the fact that the Europeans have material, the French have material to demine the whole region, when the U.S. doesn't have that many vessels that can do the job from actually not from the vessels themselves, their control in a remote matter, and they can demine the whole region. But the Europeans have said they want a real ceasefire. They want some progress before they start those operations. But yeah, he was referring to that in part, saying that the U.S. has to have allies, which it deserves, and that should act and not just talk and talk again. And yes, as you've said, it's as Europeans are here talking now, not here, but today, talking in Cyprus, and they're talking about de-escalating the situation in Hormuz, trying to bring traffic back up because the whole world economy and people's lives actually are a risk from that closure and from this double blockade. But the U.S. says that this is not time to de-escalate the blockade. It's time to put pressure to get some real results from Iran. And he talked again and again about the nuclear deal. He didn't mention all the other things, the ballistic missiles, the proxies. He talked about a nuclear deal. The Donald Trump administration wants to obtain a deal that is better than the one that Barack Obama obtained with Europe, with the UN, with the Russians, with the Chinese. They want a better deal. He said Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and we have to have verifiable means to make sure it never happens.
And we also heard from Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. His speech covered a few topics, but there was a fair amount of time dedicated to a tribute to U.S. intelligence around the world. Tell us more about that.
Yes, he says that everything that is being done now, all the observers say that indeed the U.S. and Israel have struck militarily in Iran and have managed to hit their many targets. Although Iran mocks them actually, and saying, you've hit all the targets you wanted to hit, and still the crisis is still here. You're not really winning here, you're actually losing. But yes, he said, General Kane said that the intelligence work done for decades is what allowed the U.S. to achieve all these results. And he says that our interest, the U.S. interest, our allies' interest, will not be put at stake, will not be endangered endangered by Iran. He said that Iran has repeatedly tried to expand the war by attacking neighboring countries and by other means. And yes, basically, they both said that the Iranians are here trying to escalate, and not the Americans who are really trying to find a solution and to push a deal that would be very good for Iran and for everyone.
Shirli Sitbon, thank you very much for taking us through that press conference given by the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just a moment ago.